The Vikings are often remembered as loud, fierce warriors. But tonight, we are going to meet a very different side of them. A quieter side. A slower world shaped by long nights, cold seas, flickering firelight, and patient waiting. Imagine the sound of wind moving through pine trees, waves gently tapping against wooden ships, and the soft crackle of a hearth inside a timber hall. This is the Viking world when the noise fades and the night takes over. In this video, we'll explore 25 sleepy facts about the Vikings, told slowly and gently, allowing your mind to drift while history unfolds at its own pace. So settle in, relax your shoulders, let your breathing slow, and let's begin our calm journey into the northern night. Now let's ease into the first fact, and it begins not with battle, but with the Viking longhouse. Most Vikings spent their lives inside these long, low wooden buildings, designed to protect them from harsh winds and endless winters. A longhouse was more than a home. It was warmth, shelter, and community all in one. The walls were made from timber, stone, and packed earth, thick enough to hold in heat. Inside, there were no sharp divisions between rooms. Families slept, ate, worked, and talked in the same shared space. At night, the fire in the center of the hall glowed softly, sending slow shadows dancing across wooden beams and carved posts. Smoke drifted upward and escaped through openings in the roof, carrying with it the scent of burning wood and cooked food. People lay on simple beds made of straw, animal skins, and wool, wrapped tightly against the cold. The longhouse encouraged quiet companionship. You could hear breathing, the shifting of blankets, the occasional murmur of a dream. Life moved slowly here, guided by seasons rather than clocks. In this shared warmth, surrounded by familiar sounds, Viking nights were calm, protective, and deeply human. As we drift onward, the second fact takes us out of the longhouse and onto the open sea, where Viking ships waited patiently along the shore. Viking longships were not always racing toward distant lands. Most of the time, they rested quietly, pulled up on beaches or tied gently to wooden docks. Built from overlapping planks, these ships were flexible, able to bend with waves rather than fight them. At night, the ships would creak softly as water moved beneath them. Ropes hummed gently in the wind. The smell of salt and wet wood filled the air. Vikings spent countless hours maintaining these ships, rubbing them with tar, repairing planks, and checking sails. This work was slow and repetitive, almost meditative. Sailing itself required patience. There were long stretches of stillness, when the sea was calm and the wind barely moved the sail. During these moments, sailors listened to water brushing against the hull, watched stars shift slowly overhead, and felt the steady rocking that could lull even the most alert mind into rest. The Viking relationship with the sea was not only about adventure. It was about learning to move with nature's rhythm, accepting stillness as much as motion. Now, as the night deepens, we arrive at the third fact, which lives in the quiet rituals of Viking daily life. Vikings did not rush through their days the way we often do. Much of their time was spent on slow, careful tasks like weaving cloth, carving wood, sharpening tools, or tending animals. These activities were done by hand, guided by experience rather than speed. Imagine a Viking woman sitting near the fire, gently pulling wool through her fingers, twisting it into thread while the flames flicker beside her. Or a craftsman, carving runes into wood, each line etched with care, pausing often to inspect his work. Even storytelling was unhurried. At night, families gathered around the fire, listening to sagas told slowly, with pauses that allowed images to form in the mind. The voices were calm, steady, almost hypnotic. These stories were not rushed to an ending. They unfolded like the night itself, gradually, peacefully, inviting listeners to relax into the flow of words and imagination. Now we move softly into the fourth fact, which belongs to Viking beliefs about the night, dreams, and the unseen world. The Vikings believed that nighttime was a powerful space where the boundary between worlds became thin. Dreams were taken seriously, often seen as messages or warnings. A dream was not dismissed as random. It was discussed, remembered, and sometimes acted upon. At night, the glow of firelight mixed with deep shadows, creating shapes that seemed alive. The wind outside could sound like whispers, and the forest beyond the longhouse felt full of presence. Rather than fearing this darkness, Vikings accepted it as part of life. The night was a time for reflection, for quiet thought, for connection with ancestors and gods. People believed that spirits traveled more freely after sunset, and this belief encouraged stillness and respect. As bodies rested, minds wandered gently, drifting between waking and sleep, between the known world and the unseen one. In this way, Viking nights were not empty or frightening. They were meaningful, calm, and full of quiet mystery. And so, with the fire burning low and the northern sky stretching endlessly above, we pause here. The Viking world slows with us, wrapped in wood, wool, water, and shadow. The next facts will carry us deeper into their calm routines, their connection with nature, and the slow heartbeat of their everyday lives. For now, let your thoughts rest among longhouses, ships, stories, and dreams as the night continues its gentle watch. Now that the night has settled a little deeper, we gently move into fact number 5, where the Viking world becomes quieter, softer, and surprisingly more domestic. Contrary to the fierce image often associated with them, Vikings spend most of their lives not raiding, but farming. Their days were shaped by soil, seasons, and patience. Picture a Viking farm at dusk, surrounded by low wooden fences, fields stretching quietly toward darkening hills. Families worked together tending barley, oats, rye, and vegetables, while sheep and cattle moved slowly toward shelter. The rhythm of farming demanded attentiveness rather than aggression. Plowing, sowing, waiting, and harvesting followed the calm cycles of nature. During long winters, when snow covered the land and travel was difficult, families stayed indoors, repairing tools, weaving cloth, and telling stories by firelight. This slow agricultural life grounded Viking society, giving it stability and rhythm. The sleepiest part of this fact is realizing how much waiting was involved in Viking life, waiting for crops to grow, waiting for seasons to change, waiting for daylight to return after long northern nights. Their strength came not only from battle, but from endurance, patience, and a deep connection to the land beneath their feet. As that calm image lingers, we drift softly into fact number 6, where the Viking longhouse becomes the heart of nighttime life. These longhouses were not cold, chaotic halls of constant noise, but warm, communal shelters designed to protect people from harsh climates. Imagine stepping inside one on a quiet evening. A long fire burns steadily at the center, its glow casting soft shadows on wooden walls. Smoke drifts upward through an opening in the roof, carrying warmth and a faint scent of burning wood. Along the walls, families rest on raised wooden platforms covered with furs and woven blankets. Tools hang neatly from beams. Food simmers slowly in iron pots. Conversations fade into murmurs as night deepens. The longhouse was a place of shared breathing, shared warmth, and shared silence. People slept close together, listening to the crackle of fire and the distant wind outside. There is something deeply calming in imagining this shared space, where life slowed at night, where the outside world disappeared, and where safety came from closeness rather than walls. The Viking longhouse was less about grandeur and more about comfort, protection, and belonging, qualities that quietly prepare the mind for rest. Now, as the firelight dims, we ease into fact number 7, which reveals the Viking relationship with the sea as something far more gentle than violent. While the ocean carried them to distant lands, it was also a constant presence in daily life, shaping their sense of time and calm. Vikings lived with the sound of waves, the smell of salt, and the slow rise and fall of tides. Fishing was not an act of conquest, but patience. Imagine a Viking fisherman at dawn, sitting quietly in a small boat, oars resting in still water, waiting for movement beneath the surface. Nets were cast carefully, lines held steadily, hours passing with little motion. The sea taught restraint. It demanded respect. At night, the ocean became darker and quieter, reflecting moonlight in soft ripples. For Vikings, the sea was both pathway and companion, a vast presence that encouraged reflection and humility. The sleepiest part of this fact is imagining the calm trust they placed in natural rhythm stars guiding navigation, currents shaping travel, and silence filling the space between waves. It is a reminder that their world moved slowly, even when it seemed vast. From the open sea, we return gently to land and move into fact number 8, where Viking craftsmanship reveals an unexpected tenderness. Vikings were highly skilled artisans, and much of their work required focus, stillness, and careful hands. Wood carving, jewelry making, and textile weaving were quiet tasks often done indoors, especially during winter nights. Picture a craftsman seated near the fire, carving delicate patterns into wood, repeating the same motion again and again. Or imagine someone weaving fabric, hands moving in steady rhythm, threads passing back and forth with hypnotic regularity. These designs were not rushed. They reflected patience, balance, and symmetry. Many objects were made not for display, but for daily use. Combs, bowls, tools, clothing, each carrying subtle beauty. The calm repetition of these crafts created a meditative state, allowing thoughts to drift while hands worked almost automatically. In these moments, Viking life slowed to its most peaceful form. No battle, no journey, just quiet creation, warmth, and time stretching gently forward. This side of Viking culture is rarely shown, yet it is one of the most soothing, revealing a people who valued care, detail, and calm persistence. And so, with these images of farms, fires, seas, and steady hands, the Viking world grows quieter once more. The night continues to deepen, and the harsh edges of legend soften into something slower, warmer, and far more human. And so, With the fire burning low and the northern sky stretching endlessly above, we pause here. The Viking world slows with us, wrapped in wood, wool, water, and shadow. The next facts will carry us deeper into their calm routines, their connection with nature, and the slow heartbeat of their everyday lives. For now, let your thoughts rest among longhouses, ships, stories, and dreams as the night continues its gentle watch. Now that the night has settled a little deeper, we gently move into fact number 5, where the Viking world becomes quieter, softer, and surprisingly more domestic. Contrary to the fierce image often associated with them, Vikings spend most of their lives not raiding, but farming. Their days were shaped by soil, seasons, and patience. Picture a Viking farm at dusk, surrounded by low wooden fences, fields stretching quietly toward darkening hills. Families worked together tending barley, oats, rye, and vegetables, while sheep and cattle moved slowly toward shelter. The rhythm of farming demanded attentiveness rather than aggression. Plowing, sowing, waiting, and harvesting followed the calm cycles of nature. During long winters, when snow covered the land and travel was difficult, families stayed indoors, repairing tools, weaving cloth, and telling stories by firelight. This slow agricultural life grounded Viking society, giving it stability and rhythm. The sleepiest part of this fact is realizing how much waiting was involved in Viking life, waiting for crops to grow, waiting for seasons to change, waiting for daylight to return after long northern nights. Their strength came not only from battle, but from endurance, patience, and a deep connection to the land beneath their feet. As that calm image lingers, we drift softly into fact number 6, where the Viking longhouse becomes the heart of nighttime life. These longhouses were not cold, chaotic halls of constant noise, but warm, communal shelters designed to protect people from harsh climates. Imagine stepping inside one on a quiet evening. A long fire burns steadily at the center, its glow casting soft shadows on wooden walls. Smoke drifts upward through an opening in the roof, carrying warmth and a faint scent of burning wood. Along the walls, families rest on raised wooden platforms covered with furs and woven blankets. Tools hang neatly from beams. Food simmers slowly in iron pots. Conversations fade into murmurs as night deepens. The longhouse was a place of shared breathing, shared warmth, and shared silence. People slept close together, listening to the crackle of fire and the distant wind outside. There is something deeply calming in imagining this shared space, where life slowed at night, where the outside world disappeared, and where safety came from closeness rather than walls. The Viking longhouse was less about grandeur and more about comfort, protection, and belonging, qualities that quietly prepare the mind for rest. Now, as the firelight dims, we ease into fact number 7, which reveals the Viking relationship with the sea as something far more gentle than violent. While the ocean carried them to distant lands, it was also a constant presence in daily life, shaping their sense of time and calm. Vikings lived with the sound of waves, the smell of salt, and the slow rise and fall of tides. Fishing was not an act of conquest, but patience. Imagine a Viking fisherman at dawn, sitting quietly in a small boat, oars resting in still water, waiting for movement beneath the surface. Nets were cast carefully, Lines held steadily, hours passing with little motion. The sea taught restraint. It demanded respect. At night, the ocean became darker and quieter, reflecting moonlight in soft ripples. For Vikings, the sea was both pathway and companion, a vast presence that encouraged reflection and humility. The sleepiest part of this fact is imagining the calm trust they placed in natural rhythm, stars guiding navigation, currents shaping travel, and silence filling the space between waves. It is a reminder that their world moved slowly, even when it seemed vast. From the open sea, we return gently to land and move into fact number 8, where Viking craftsmanship reveals an unexpected tenderness. Vikings were highly skilled artisans, and much of their work required focus, stillness, and careful hands. Wood carving, jewelry making, and textile weaving were quiet tasks often done indoors, especially during winter nights. Picture a craftsman seated near the fire, carving delicate patterns into wood, repeating the same motion again and again. Or imagine someone weaving fabric, hands moving in steady rhythm, threads passing back and forth with hypnotic regularity. These designs were not rushed. They reflected patience, balance, and symmetry. Many objects were made not for display, but for daily use. Combs, bowls, tools, clothing, each carrying subtle beauty. The calm repetition of these crafts created a meditative state, allowing thoughts to drift while hands worked almost automatically. In these moments, Viking life slowed to its most peaceful form. No battle, no journey, just quiet creation, warmth, and time stretching gently forward. This side of Viking culture is rarely shown, yet it is one of the most soothing, revealing a people who valued care, detail, and calm persistence. And so, with these images of farms, fires, seas, and steady hands, the Viking world grows quieter once more. The night continues to deepen, and the harsh edges of legend soften into something slower, warmer, and far more human. And this brings us to fact 13. By now, many people imagine Vikings as endlessly restless, always traveling, fighting, or exploring distant lands. But the truth is that much of Viking life was deeply rooted in stillness, patience, and long periods of waiting. Winters in the Viking world were long, dark, and quiet. Snow covered the land for months. Seas froze or became too dangerous to sail, and travel slowed almost to a stop. During these months, Vikings stayed indoors, often gathered together in longhouses, surrounded by firelight and shadows dancing on wooden walls. Time moved slowly. Days blended into nights, and nights stretched endlessly. People repaired tools, carved wood, mended clothing, and told stories in low voices. These quiet winters shaped Viking culture profoundly, teaching endurance, calm, and respect for silence. The sleepy rhythm of winter life reminds us that Vikings were not always warriors in motion, but people who learned to live with stillness, darkness, and patience. As the fire crackled softly inside the longhouse, elders would speak of the past, passing stories down through generations. These stories were not rushed. They unfolded slowly, often over many nights, with pauses, reflections, and quiet moments in between. The Vikings believed stories had power, and power required patience. Listening itself became an act of stillness. Outside, The wind whispered through trees, snow muffled every sound, and the world felt hushed. This deep, seasonal, quiet-shaped Viking psychology, encouraging contemplation and inner strength. Fact 13 reminds us that behind the image of fierce raiders were people deeply familiar with silence and the slow passage of time. Now, as that winter scene fades gently into the background, we drift into Fact 14, which reveals the Vikings' intimate relationship with the night sky. Without artificial lights, Viking nights were incredibly dark, but also filled with stars. On clear nights, the sky stretched endlessly overhead, filled with constellations, drifting clouds, and the soft glow of the Milky Way. Vikings watched the stars not only for navigation, but for comfort and meaning. The sky was seen as alive, a place where gods traveled and stories unfolded. Watching the night sky became a quiet ritual, especially during calm evenings after work was done. People would step outside longhouses, wrap themselves in wool cloaks, and stand silently, gazing upward. This practice was not hurried. It was slow, reflective, and deeply soothing. The steady movement of stars across the sky offered reassurance that time continued, even when life felt uncertain. The Vikings learned patience from the heavens, observing patterns that repeated year after year. The moon's cycles helped track time, tides, and seasons. Even the gentle northern lights, dancing silently across the sky, were believed to be messages from the divine. Fact 14 reminds us that Viking nights were filled not with chaos, but with quiet wonder, slow observation, and a deep connection to the vastness above. As the stars slowly drift across the imagined sky, we move calmly into Fact 15, which focuses on Viking craftsmanship and the quiet focus required to create their everyday objects. Vikings were skilled artisans, and much of their work demanded long hours of concentration. Whether carving wood, shaping metal, weaving cloth, or crafting jewelry, these tasks required patience and precision. Imagine a Viking artisan sitting near a small fire, hands moving slowly, carefully shaping a piece of wood or metal. The sound of tools tapping gently, the glow of embers reflecting on polished surfaces, and the steady rhythm of breath create a deeply calming scene. These crafts were often done in silence or accompanied by soft conversation. Each object was made to last, not to be rushed. Tools, bowls, combs, and ornaments were crafted with care, reflecting an understanding that usefulness and beauty could coexist. This slow craftsmanship created a meditative state, allowing the maker to focus fully on the task at hand. Fact 15 reveals a side of Viking life defined not by speed or aggression, but by mindfulness, dedication, and the quiet satisfaction of creation. These moments of focused calm were woven into daily life, grounding the Vikings in steady rhythms and gentle repetition. Now, from the glow of the workshop, we drift smoothly into Fact 16, which explores Viking burial traditions and their peaceful relationship with rest and remembrance. While Viking burials are often imagined as dramatic or fiery, many were deeply solemn and reflective. Burial ceremonies were moments of quiet respect, where the community gathered to honor the dead. Bodies were carefully prepared, wrapped in cloth, and placed with objects meant to accompany them into the next world. These ceremonies were slow and deliberate, marked by silence, soft chanting or whispered words. Grave sites were often placed in calm, meaningful locations near water, hills, or open landscapes. Over time, these places became quiet spaces for reflection. People would visit graves, stand silently, and remember those who had passed. Death was not rushed or feared, but accepted as part of a natural cycle. Fact 16 shows that Vikings understood rest not only as sleep, but as eternal stillness, a return to the rhythms of the earth. Their burial practices reflect a calm acceptance of time's flow, offering a deeply peaceful perspective on life and its end. As this section closes, the Viking world feels quieter, slower, and more reflective. Long winters, star-filled skies, patient craftsmanship, and gentle remembrance all come together to reveal a culture shaped by stillness as much as strength. The fires burn low, the stars continue their silent journey, and the world settles into calm. Now that the earlier facts have slowly settled into the background, like distant waves, we move gently forward into fact 17, and this one belongs to the quiet, often misunderstood world of Viking farming and daily survival. While Vikings are remembered for ships and battles, most of their lives were spent working the land in calm, repetitive routines. Imagine a Viking farm at dawn, the air cool and slightly damp, mist resting low over the fields. Wooden houses sit close together, smoke rising softly from hearths, as families wake for another day, shaped by seasons rather than ambition. The soil is rocky and stubborn, so every patch of land is precious. Vikings plant barley, oats, and rye, crops chosen not for luxury but for reliability. They work slowly, methodically, aware that haste brings mistakes and mistakes bring hunger. Animals move quietly through enclosures, sheep grazing calmly, cows standing patiently to be milked. This daily rhythm, planting, tending, harvesting, forms the true backbone of Viking life. It is repetitive, steady, and deeply connected to the land. There is something profoundly sleepy about imagining generations repeating the same motions, guided by sunrise and sunset, trusting the earth to respond in its own time. As that image settles, we drift onward into fact 18, which explores how Vikings understood time itself, not through clocks, but through nature's quiet signals. There were no ticking mechanisms, no measured minutes. Time was felt in light and shadow, in the length of days and the angle of the sun. A Viking knew when to work, when to rest, and when to prepare for winter, simply by watching the sky. The seasons were not abstract ideas, but living forces that shaped behavior and thought. Summer was a gift of light and activity, while winter brought long nights of stillness and reflection. During those dark months, families gathered indoors, telling stories, repairing tools, weaving cloth, and waiting patiently for the sun's return. This natural relationship with time encouraged slowness. There was no rushing against the seasons, no fighting the darkness. Instead, there was acceptance, adaptation, and quiet endurance. Imagining this way of living feels like stepping into a world where time moves gently, without pressure, allowing the mind to relax into a natural rhythm that modern life has almost forgotten. From this calm understanding of time, we move softly into fact 19, which belongs to the Viking relationship with storytelling and memory. Long before books were common, stories were carried by voices, passed from one generation to the next during long evenings by the fire. Picture a dimly lit hall, flames flickering against wooden walls, shadows dancing as someone begins to speak. The stories are not hurried. They unfold slowly, with pauses, repetition, and careful emphasis. These tales preserve family histories, heroic deeds, and lessons about honor, loss, and survival. But they are also comforting, familiar, like a well-worn path through the woods. Hearing the same story many times does not diminish its power. Instead, it deepens it. Each retelling adds warmth and continuity, reminding listeners that they belong to something larger than themselves. This oral tradition creates a soothing sense of permanence. Even as individuals age and pass away, the stories remain, floating gently through time, like embers carried by the wind. Listening to these imagined voices now, one can almost feel the quiet settling in, the mind drifting as familiar phrases guide it toward rest. And now we ease into Fact 20, which focuses on Viking burial practices and their calm acceptance of life's end. While some burials were dramatic, many were deeply personal and serene. The dead were often laid to rest with objects they cherished: tools, clothing, small tokens of daily life. These were not symbols of wealth alone, but reminders of who the person truly was. Graves were placed thoughtfully, sometimes overlooking water or open land, as if allowing the departed to remain part of the world they loved. There was no sharp divide between life and death in Viking belief. Death was seen as a continuation, a transition rather than an ending. This perspective softened grief, allowing it to blend with memory and respect. The rituals themselves were unhurried, filled with silence and reflection. Standing in such a moment, one can imagine the wind moving through grass, the distant cry of birds, the slow lowering of earth. It is not frightening, but peaceful, a reminder that everything moves forward in its own time, and that rest is a natural part of the journey. And so, with these 4 facts, the Viking world becomes quieter, slower, more human. The image of warriors fades, replaced by farmers watching the sky, families waiting through winter nights, storytellers warming a room with familiar words, and loved ones gently laid to rest beneath open skies. The past feels less distant now, not loud or restless, but calm and enduring, like the steady sound of waves meeting the shore in the dark. Now, as the night grows deeper and the world feels quieter, we move gently into the next layer of Viking life. And this brings us to fact. By this point, we have already seen the Vikings as sailors, traders, builders, and storytellers. But here we begin to notice how deeply they listened to the natural world around them. For the Vikings, nature was not something separate from daily life. It was a living presence, a quiet companion that guided their actions and shaped their beliefs. The wind, the sea, the forests, and the mountains were not silent. They spoke, slowly and patiently, to those who knew how to listen. At night, especially, the Viking world softened. The sounds of waves against wooden hulls, the rustling of pine trees outside longhouses, the distant calls of birds settling into darkness, all of these sounds blended into a calming rhythm. Vikings believed that nature held spirits and forces that could protect or warn them. A sudden shift in wind might be seen as a message. A calm sea at dusk could feel like reassurance. This belief encouraged attentiveness, a quiet awareness of surroundings that slowed the mind rather than rushed it. Even their farming followed this gentle rhythm. Crops were planted and harvested with careful timing, guided by seasons and moonlight rather than strict schedules. At night, families would sit together inside their longhouses, listening to the weather outside, feeling the warmth of the fire, sensing the land resting along with them. This deep connection to nature created a life that moved in cycles rather than straight lines. There was patience in waiting for spring, acceptance in the arrival of winter, and calm understanding that everything had its time. As you imagine this, it feels easy to breathe slower, to feel grounded, as if the steady heartbeat of the earth itself is carrying you gently toward rest. And now, without hurry, we drift forward into Fact 22, where the focus turns inward toward the quiet strength of Viking craftsmanship. While Viking weapons and ships often receive attention, much of Viking craftsmanship was slow, repetitive, and deeply calming in nature. Carving wood, weaving fabric, shaping metal, these were not rushed tasks. They were done over long hours, often by firelight, with hands moving almost automatically once skill had been mastered. Picture a Viking artisan sitting quietly near the hearth. As night settles in, the room is warm, the fire low, shadows dancing softly on the wooden walls. With steady hands, the artisan carves patterns into wood spirals, animals, symbols inspired by nature and myth. Each movement is small and controlled, each cut deliberate. The process itself is soothing, almost meditative. There is no urgency. The object will take as long as it takes. Weaving was especially rhythmic. The loom creates a gentle, repetitive motion, threads passing back and forth in a steady pattern that lulls the mind into calm focus. Many Viking textiles were created during long winter nights, when darkness arrived early and the world outside was silent. In these moments, time seemed to stretch, and the act of creation became a way to stay grounded and peaceful through the cold months. Even metalwork followed this patient rhythm. Heating, shaping, cooling, and refining required attention and calm focus. The Vikings understood that rushing metal would ruin it. The same philosophy applied to life. Strength came from patience, beauty came from repetition, and mastery came from allowing time to do its work. Thinking about this slow craftsmanship invites your own thoughts to settle, to move more gently, as if each idea is being shaped carefully rather than forced. Now, we ease into Fact 2, where the Viking relationship with sleep itself quietly reveals something deeply human and comforting. Sleep was not seen as wasted time or something to be minimized. It was necessary, respected, and woven naturally into daily life. Without artificial lighting, the Vikings followed the natural cycle of daylight and darkness. When night came, the world dimmed together. Inside longhouses, families slept communally, wrapped in wool blankets and animal furs. The fire burned low, offering warmth without brightness. Shadows soft the edges of the room. Outside, the wind moved gently through grass and trees, while inside breathing slowed and bodies rested. Sleep was deep and uninterrupted, shaped by exhaustion from physical work and the absence of constant noise. Dreams held meaning for the Vikings. They believed dreams could carry messages, warnings, or glimpses of future events. Because of this, dreams were remembered, shared, and reflected upon rather than dismissed. This belief gave sleep a quiet importance. Closing one's eyes was not an escape, but a passage into another layer of understanding. There was also acceptance of rest during the day when needed. Long journeys at sea required sailors to sleep in shifts, learning to rest even with the gentle rocking of waves beneath them. This ability to rest anywhere, under open sky, or inside wooden walls, reflects a deep trust in the rhythm of life. Sleep was not something to fight against. It arrived when the body needed it, and it was welcomed without guilt. As this thought settles, the Viking world feels softer and more intimate. Not a place of constant battle, but a world where people worked hard, rested deeply, and lived in harmony with the slow turning of days and seasons. The night wraps around them like a protective cloak, and the quiet becomes a comfort rather than an absence. As the night deepens, we gently arrive at fact 24, and this one belongs to the quiet end of a Viking's life. While Vikings are often remembered for how they fought and traveled, the way they prepared for death was calm, thoughtful, and deeply connected to nature. Many Vikings believed that death was not an ending, but a slow crossing into another familiar place. Burial rituals were often peaceful events, filled with care rather than fear. Bodies were laid to rest with everyday items, tools, jewelry, weapons, food, not because of glory, but because life was expected to continue in another form. Some were buried beneath simple earthen mounds, others beneath stones arranged carefully by family and friends. In coastal regions, boats were sometimes used as graves, gently pulled onto land or set adrift, symbolizing a final journey rather than a farewell. The sleepiest part of this fact is the stillness of those burial sites today. Grass grows over the mounds. Wind moves softly through them. Birds nest nearby. Time has slowed them into silence, turning once living stories into quiet places where the earth remembers gently. Now, as we move into the final fact, fact 25, we begin to understand something softer about the Vikings that history rarely emphasizes. Despite their reputation, Vikings valued peace just as deeply as strength. Most Viking lives were not spent raiding, but farming, fishing, repairing homes, raising children, telling stories, and watching the seasons change. Long winters encouraged closeness, warmth, and storytelling by firelight. Elders shared memories. Children learned skills slowly, patiently, by watching and repeating. Communities depended on cooperation, trust, and shared labor. Even their laws were built around discussion rather than force, with disputes often settled through calm assemblies where voices mattered more than weapons. The true Viking legacy is not endless battle, but endurance, the ability to live in harmony with harsh landscapes, long nights, and quiet uncertainty. Their strength was rooted in patience, adaptability, and respect for natural rhythms. When you imagine a Viking village at night, it is not loud or violent. It is dimly lit, warm inside wooden halls, filled with the soft sounds of breathing, fire crackling, and the distant wind moving over snow and sea. And now, as our journey through the world of the Vikings gently comes to rest, allow all these images to drift together slowly. The quiet glide of longships across dark water, the steady rhythm of oars, the warmth of hearth fires inside wooden homes, the calm patience of farmers working frozen soil, the careful carving of runes into stone, the peaceful silence of burial mounds resting beneath grass and sky. The Vikings were not only warriors of the sea, but listeners of wind, watchers of stars, and keepers of stories whispered through generations. Let those stories fade softly now. Let the cold air settle into calm stillness. Let the night grow heavier and quieter. Good night. Sleep well, and let the gentle echoes of the Viking world carry you peacefully into your dreams.